All right, guys, the time has come. It's time to finally get back into Green Bay Packers mock drafts. A lot of you in the comment section of my videos have been asking me, when will the mock drafts return? A lot of you found my channel because of the mock drafts we do every single week during the offseason leading up to the draft. And we begin this week. And usually I would do them later in the week, sometimes around Thursday or Friday, but I'm switching it up this year. I'm going for Monday mock drafts because it just flows better. It's mock draft Monday. So of course, I just really started diving down into the prospects. I don't do so until the season is officially over. I know a lot of people like to dive into the prospects during the season. I just have too much on my plate in that regard, thinking about the Green Bay Packers and the NFL. So I usually wait until the end of the season, but I just started to really dive down into it. And of course, the Senior Bowl happening helped with that as well. Got my eyes on some of these players for the upcoming draft class, and there are some really nice players in that Senior Bowl, that's for sure, that I'm going to be targeting here in these mock drafts early on. But it's fun to always look back at the early mock drafts and see how much changes from that point up until draft night, because it does every single time. So in today's video, we're going to be doing a simple 3-round mock draft for the Green Bay Packers. We do this every year. We start kind of slow in terms of, okay, we're going to do a 3-round, then we'll upgrade to a 5-round, then we'll start getting into the 7-round mock drafts when we learn more and more about all the players and where players are starting to really fall in this draft class. Then after that, we implement trades and go on with that. But at this rate, if I do a mock draft every single week, which some weeks I may do more than one, if you guys really want that, we'll have about 12 different mock drafts that I do for the Green Bay Packers. And just like last year, I'll likely finish off the whole series with doing a Brian Gutekunst mock draft. If you guys remember my one last year, I got the Jordan Morgan and Edgerrin Cooper and Katana Ladapo pick all correct. So I do really appreciate you guys coming by to the channel. Mock drafts are one of my favorite things to do, and this is my favorite time of the year for sure. So if this sort of thing does interest you and you want to see a new mock draft, a new draft content, multiple times a week, go down and click that subscribe button. I'm also thinking of starting a new series where I mock other people's mock drafts, and that'll be done through my Discord server. I'll leave a link down in the description below. If you join up on that, there'll be a separate channel called Mock Drafts, and basically input your mock drafts there during a said week, and maybe I'll use them in a video to go over them. So now back into the video, and now to what you guys have all been waiting for and asking for in my comments. Let's dive down into the mock draft. So bring up the screen. We are on the trusty PFF mock draft simulator, and as you see, I have it set for 3 rounds here, and you can see all the advanced settings on the right. We're going to select the Green Bay Packers, who pick at pick 23, just to quickly kind of go over what the Packers should be looking for in this draft and what their needs are. I think we can all agree that cornerback and edge are 2 of their biggest needs in terms of this draft. A lot of people believe they should go out and get a wide receiver, myself included, and if Christian Watson wasn't hurt, maybe I would have a different opinion on that, but I still think the Packers could go get another wide receiver in this draft class. 1, because, again, Watson's going to be hurt until week 12 at minimum. And 2, because Watson and Dobbs will be on the last year of their contracts this year. So I think the Packers will have their eyes on drafting, a receiver or two in this draft. I think linebacker, they could add one in the middle rounds. Offensive lineman, obviously, always something the Packers could add. And I think defensive line as well. They could add someone down low there to help with their defensive line, including an edge rusher and a defensive lineman. All right, so let's dive right into it. Let's enter the draft. And since we're doing no trades, we're doing a simple 3-round mock draft and doing no trades. Let's get to our pick. All right, so quickly, let's go over the picks that happened up to the Green Bay Packers pick here at 23. So Cam Ward goes at 1 to the Titans. I think that's what everyone thinks is going to happen here at pick 1, but again, we're so far away. Abdul Carter at 2 to the Browns. Myles Garrett did just request a trade. I know a lot of Packer fans are probably like, oh my God, they should go get Myles Garrett. I just don't know if it's going to be possible for Brian Gutekunst, but them getting Abdul Carter here makes sense. Travis Hunter to the Giants. Will Johnson to the Patriots. Tet McMillan to the Jags. Shadur Sanders to the Raiders. Malachi Starks to the Jets, James Pierce to the Panthers, Will Campbell to the Saints, Egbuka to the Bears, Mike Green to the 49ers, Josh Simmons to the Cowboys, Mason Graham to the Dolphins, Tyler Warren to the Colts, Benjamin Morrison's a corner I really, really like out of Notre Dame. If he somehow falls into the 20s, maybe the Packers could trade up for someone like him. Shamar Stewart to the Cardinals, Luther Burden to the Bengals, Ashton Genty to the Seahawks. That'd be an interesting one for them to select with Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet there already. Jack Sawyer to the Bucks, Omarion Hampton to the Broncos, Kelvin Banks to the Steelers, and Gray Zabel, who's been flying up boards after an insane Senior Bowl, And he's someone, if he's there at 23, maybe the Packers, go offensive lineman yet again. I know a lot of people wouldn't like that, but it's something the Packers could totally do. But he goes here at 22. So players that are on the board right now for the Green Bay Packers, Mykel Williams, who has some raw potential at edge, I think could turn into a solid edge rusher for the Packers. Walter Nolan, if you're looking at a solid run defense style defensive lineman, but also could disrupt in the passing game. We have Membu at tackle. We have Kenneth Grant, another defensive lineman. Nick Scotton here, Texas A&M edge player. Last year had 4 sacks. There's a lot of different players here. Jahdae Barron is a corner I really like. I know some people either hate him or love him, but there's also a lot of cornerbacks available here right around this mark. You have Jahdae Barron, you have Trey Amos, Siobhan Revel. Now, someone who's also flying up boards and I think could end up in the first and second round is Azare Thomas. Now, this guy had a very, very impressive Senior Bowl. Did get beat a little bit by Oregon receiver Tez Johnson, but I feel like he had one of the better Senior Bowls as a cornerback. 6'2", 198 pounds, from Florida State, still under 21 years old, only allowed a 50 passer rating last year, had an interception, but a lot of these cornerbacks, haven't allowed a great passer rating last year. You see Jahdae Barron here had 5 interceptions last year, a 90.8 coverage or overall grade, 33.1 passer rating allowed, and I really like him. He's one of my favorite corners coming out of this class. A little bit on the say older side at 23 for a prospect. 5'11", 200 pounds. I think a lot of people like taller cornerbacks in this class, such as Trey Amos here at 6'1". Siobhan Revel, I believe, is 6'3", 193 pounds. So all 3 of these options here I do like. I do like all these cornerbacks. We see Amos had 3 interceptions, 54.5 passer rating, completion percentage 51.6%. Siobhan Revel, 38.1 completion percent, had 2 interceptions, did play against lesser competition. Also getting injured in 2024, only playing in 3 games. You could see didn't play in that much competition there last season. So I don't know if the Packers would spend pick 23 on a guy who was hurt last season. I think one of these two, Jahdae Barron or Trey Amos, would be their pick if it was cornerback here at 23, which is where I'm leaning. Right now, we don't know what the Packers are going to do with Jair Alexander. If the Packers move on from Jair, you can almost bet that they're going to draft a cornerback in the first round. I still think they can draft a corner in the first round, even if they keep Jair. Eric Stokes is an impending free agent. I don't think they bring him back. I really like Carrington Valentine's potential, but I really think they need to address this cornerback position, or at least outside cornerback position, which you see Barron mainly played last season. Now, he did play slot before that, so it has some versatility, which is nice as well. You see Amos mainly throughout his career, pretty much all throughout his career, an outside corner as well. Now, I really like Barron because if you watch his tape against Georgia, this is a guy who could play outside, could play inside, even rotate deep at safety, can defend against the run really well. 91.3 coverage grade last year, an 83.3 run defense grade. And you see, he had good grades against great teams. We have Michigan on here. We have Georgia. You have, Florida, if you want to include them. Clemson, 78.5. He played Georgia twice and, had above average grade and a really good grade here in this game of 74.7. That's the game we're talking about there when you go and watch that one back. He had a zone coverage grade of 91.8. 10 forced incompletions, 11 coverage stops. He had 7 missed tackles. Again, he only allowed a passer rating of 33.1 last season. Didn't allow a touchdown. Had 5 interceptions and allowed 36 receptions on 67 targets. So for my first ever Green Bay Packers 2025 mock draft, we are going to go Jahdae Barron, cornerback from Texas. Now here in round 2, I was really hoping Jaden Higgins would fall to 55. Now he's someone that I think will go early in the second round, maybe a potential trade up into the early second round, kind of similar to they did with Christian Watson. I mean, he's been by far the best wide receiver at the Senior Bowl. We know the Packers love their Senior Bowl players, and man, he's been insane. Considering his size, 6'4", 215, he runs his routes really crisp. He has great breakdown, great snap down at the top of his routes. Last year, 1,100 yards. The year before that, 900 yards and 90.3 PFF grade last year. Very low drop rate at 2.2%. Obviously, we've had some drop issues this last season. Great contested catch rate, great yards per route run. Man, I really wanted Jaden Higgins. You know, a lot of people have been talking about the Packers going and signing T. Higgins. Well, maybe this is the Higgins they actually need, but he goes in this mock draft. But ideally, if he was here at 55, just know that would be my pick. So here at pick 55, I was taking a look at edge rushers and defensive linemen. Now, I think the Packers could definitely add an edge rusher at their second pick here at 55. There's players such as Kyle Kennard. We have Jordan Birch, Jared Ivey, Josiah Stewart, but someone who has a lot of versatility and could help with getting after the quarterback, but also stopping the run is someone like Derek Harmon. And this defensive lineman class here in 2025 is absolutely loaded. So if you're going to get a defensive lineman here at 55, these are players that would likely go at the back end of the first, early second in last year's draft. Like Derek Harmon would go a lot higher in last year's draft. You know, he could play 3 tech in our 4-3 scheme at defensive line. You can kind of move him around. He can be a pass rusher. He's good against the run as well. I mean, we see a pass rush win rate at 17.6%. And one of his best grades, actually two of his best grades on the year are against Ohio State. So, you know, rose up to the competition last year, definitely had 5 sacks last year, an 84.2 grade, pass rush grade 86.2, run defense 80.5, true pass set pass rush grade of 91.1, run stop rate also high, 7.1%. Like I said, could play 3 tech, 6'5", 310 pounds. I think the Packers need to add defensive linemen in general, whether that's edge, interior guys that can rotate and play both. I think they need to add talent in that room. It was a very underwhelming year for Kenny Clark. I really like Devontae Wyatt and Carl Brooks, but adding another guy into that group here, I think would help the Packers a ton. And I think they could also go out and either trade for or sign a free agent edge rusher and then just go and draft a defensive lineman, you know, an interior guy where this draft class is super, super talented in. So here at pick 55, we are going Derek Harmon, defensive lineman from Oregon. Now we are at our final pick in the 3rd round. We see Josiah Stewart's here, edge rusher, but I think we're going to go offense. And there's a couple guys. There's Tate Ratledge at guard from Georgia, 6'6", 320 pounds, right guard, maybe transitions into, say, a right tackle at the NFL level. What the Packers will do at center, I'm not sure. Will they put Elton Jenkins over at center? Will they put Zach Tom at center? Will they keep Josh Myers? But 2 players that are very intriguing here on offense, that's not an offensive lineman, is Trey Harris and Harold Fannin Jr. I could totally see the Packers in the 3rd round going someone like Harold Fannin Jr. and pairing him up with Tucker Kraft, which would be absolutely insane. I mean, look at the grades over here, guys. Even against Penn State, a 91.7. He had 1,500 receiving yards last season. I mean, this is absolutely diabolical. 6'4", 230 pounds. A grade of 95.9. I mean, it is just so intriguing. But another player that's also very intriguing is Trey Harris here from Ole Miss. And you just look at his grade versus man coverage, 94.4. The problem the Packers had last year in the games that they struggled on offense was they couldn't beat man coverage. And Trey Harris is someone who can definitely beat man coverage. 61.5 contested catch rate, 5.15 yards per route run is insane. 89.8 overall grade this last season, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. He mainly played at out wide, and that's in 8 games, guys. That's 1,000 yards in 8 games. And he mainly plays out wide, which the Packers need, right? We have our slot guys. Reed plays there, and you know, other players can play there. But Trey Harris and Harold Fannin here, man, it's hard deciding between the two because I want the Packers to be able to, you know, use 2 tight end sets like I thought they would with Luke Musgrave, but do they give up on Luke Musgrave this quick? Because drafting someone like Harold Fannin in the 3rd round, which first off, I think he's going to go before this, would pretty much, you know, put the nail in the coffin, in my opinion, for Luke Musgrave, which is not something the Packers tend to do early, you know, for a player like that has that potential. So as much as I love Harold Fannin, I think the need at wide receiver is just slightly higher. I know you just always want to draft best player available, but I think both of these guys are very, very close for me in terms of, you know, their value here. And I just think Trey Harris adds a little bit more value for the Green Bay Packers. here in 2025 and for the future, of course, at wide receiver. 6'3", 210 pounds, just about to turn 23 years old. You know, an outside receiver, can go up and get a 1v1 ball, can beat man coverage consistently. I really, really like Trey Harris. So with our final pick in this first 2025 Green Bay Packers 3-round mock draft, we are going Trey Harris, wide receiver, here out of Ole Miss at pick 87. All right, so let's quickly go over the 3 picks I made in this first ever 2025 Green Bay Packers mock draft. For our first pick at pick 23, we go cornerback. I think there's a massive need there. One of my favorite guys coming out of this class is Jahdae Barron. Now, I think Azareye'h Thomas is going to rise up boards and also could be an option here. I think Trey Amos, an option. There's a lot of options here at corner in the first round, but that's a good thing, right? I think there's a lot of talented cornerbacks in this draft class, but Jahdae Barron's one of my favorites. You know, very versatile guy. Rose up to the competition against Georgia, had a really good game against them, playing multiple positions. Really like Jahdae Barron there in the first pick. Derek Harmon's a guy, also versatility, could play 3-tech in a 4-3 scheme, get after the passer, but also do a good job stopping the run. I think the Packers could add from the outside, free agency or draft at edge rusher, and then bring in a guy like Derek Harmon, a loaded defensive lineman class in this year's draft. And then in round 3, go Trey Harris, who's one of my favorite wide receivers in this draft class, and I would be ecstatic if he's available in the 3rd round and the Packers ran that card up, because true X wide receiver, go up and win 50-50 matchups, right? Go up and get a jump ball situation, 1v1, red zone, beat man coverage. The Packers need a guy like that. They 100% do. And if they walk away with Trey Harris in the 3rd round, man, I'll be smiling from ear to ear. So I appreciate you guys coming by to the channel. Let me know what you think of this first mock draft. Of course, so much is going to change from now until the draft here in April. Let me know if there's other players on the board that you really like, and then I can go ahead and take a look into their film, take a look into the players themselves. Of course, I'm still learning a lot, so if I miss certain players or I didn't talk about them, and there's someone on the board that you're like, wow, why didn't he talk about him? Of course, let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to do my research on that player as well. I do these mock drafts so not only I can learn during the process, but you guys can learn with me about certain players. And if there's a really intriguing prospect like Trey Harris, you know, I'll make videos breaking down his tape, his college tape there at Ole Miss. I'll definitely do that. I do it every year where I pick a, select few prospects that I really like. I did it on Edgerrin Cooper, Katana Ladapo last year, actually before the draft, and the Packers ended up drafting both those guys. So really appreciate you guys coming by to the channel. Reminder to go check out BetUS. Use code YouTube150 at sign up for a 150% deposit match on your first deposit. Again, go click subscribe if you do like Green Bay Packers mock drafts. There'll be plenty of them here on this channel over the course of the next couple months. I'll catch you on the next one, and as always, go Pack Go.